There we go. Okay, if we could have a roll call, please.
Mary Chivy present.
John Lavoie, present.
Jefferson present.
Matthew Bulmer present.
And myself, John Arnold, present. In that we have a quorum, all being present, I'll call the meeting to order. Are there any, does anyone have any pecuniary interests? I don't believe so. And if not, we can move forward. Now, we've got quite a bit of stuff to cover today. And in the interest of sort of getting through this, I'd like to put a speaking order in place so we kind of speak in turn. Matt, if you could take position 1, John Levac, if you could take 2, Mary 3, Barb 4, and I'll follow with any remarks that are required at that as we go through these items. We're kind of hoping that'll speed things up and keep an order of speaking in place, if that's okay. Could I, the minutes of the 19th and the August 17th meetings, July 19th and August 17th meetings have been distributed. Are there any comments about those 2 sets of minutes?
I have comments.
Mary?
Yeah. I don't know if there's a precedent for recording minutes the way they are now that I didn't pay attention to, but I'm finding, for instance, the minutes from the August 17th emergency meeting have no discussion points in them at all. In other words, if I was reading these minutes as a historian, I would have no context for understanding the meeting other than the agenda documents.
Yeah, the meeting of the 17th is somewhat problematic. It may be that we should have a line in there that the issues surrounding the Calfas House were discussed or presented, and a report from consulting engineer was read in. I'd like to, I mean, the events of that meeting are on the record because it was recorded. I'm not quite sure how you handle the minutes of a meeting that turned that contentious. Courtney,
Well,
do you have any comments?
Certainly. So just a comment that the minutes that we've been drafting, similar to our council meeting minutes, capture direction. So any direction coming from the committee that is required is in those minutes. We have gotten away from verbatim minutes simply because we have a video recording that is part of the record now, and we can produce, those verbatim minutes from the video recording. So that's why the minutes look as they do, because they're just intended to capture the direction.
Mary, comments?
so Courtney, are there then verbatim minutes?
There's the video recording, so that exists. So if we did get a request from somebody that would like to have those printed for them, if the audio recording isn't sufficient, then we certainly could do that for them. But
Yeah.
they exist as they are on the video recording, and then the minutes from the meeting captures the direction, the written minutes.
For instance, so Mayor Seeley made some comments in that meeting that I thought were quite important regarding demolition of properties and going forward in order to deal with the problem that was the center of that meeting. And yet I see nothing in the minutes concerning that. So I wonder if, is there something on these printed minutes that refer, yes, there are, that I suppose that one can then upload and participate in the whole meeting. I just find it, I don't know, I as a historian, if I was looking through these minutes, I would not know the content of that meeting. And if I couldn't access the video and audio, I would still not know. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
Good, Mr.
about-
Chair?
Matt, did you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's an excellent question raised by Mary, and maybe I can speak to it, that over my time on council, best practices that have been taught at conferences from various municipal experts has been to move away from having staff produce verbatim minutes and only producing the business of the meeting, recording the business of the meeting in the minutes. The exception to that you'll see is in the minutes for our Committee of Adjustment, which is an adjudication process. And in those minutes, the comments are recorded because they form part of the adjudication discussion. But in council minutes and committee minutes, you'll see primarily the issue that was put on the table, who moved the motion, who seconded it, and whether it passed or not. And that's, over time, I've seen the minutes change from that to reflect that what we've been taught is now becoming best practices for municipal minutes.
I do take your point though, Mary. If
So do I.
If the electronic records are destroyed or become unavailable, then history is lost. Is that right?
Well, history is lost, and you know, I think I've watched the video of that meeting now twice, but it's not easy to just access the gist of that from this paper document. And I'm not asking that it be changed. I was really asking why it appears this way. And it sounds to me like Courtney and Matthew have explained that. So I, you know, that's fine. As an academic, I would not accept those as best practices. However, I understand that that is what is done. And now I know why the minutes are so brief.
Okay, any further comment? Oh, sorry, Jeff, you have your hand up.
I just wanted to add to Mary's comment. I see where you're coming from, Mary, and I am stricken myself about, I don't know if you ever caught the Municipal Act, but it actually says without note or comment for minutes coming from a municipal organization, which is very interesting compared to if you look at like the federal government or even the province, where they're much more in detail. But you know, I know that's not certainly negating anything Matthew or Courtney have said about the best practices, because it is certainly what we've been directed as the best practice. But I do find it as interesting, particularly when you look at the other two levels of government. So I do see what you're saying.
Okay, thank you. I have no further comment, John.
Yes, Barb, you're waving there.
As person number 4, I would like to add a comment here. I'm still concerned about a report that's given that's inaudible. So we did have something from a report from Andrew Hearthcote, the chief building official. And during that meeting, we identified that report as inaudible, and there was some discussion that there might be a transcript available. I would suggest that it could have been with the minutes. Is that something that, I don't know how you follow up on that. Perhaps Courtney could help me with that.
Certainly, Barb. So I think what we have the ability to do through where the videos are posted on YouTube is to add closed captioning to the video, which produces the transcript. Now, it's not always 100%, and staff do need to go through and make sure to edit if there are some words that aren't picked up clearly, but we could certainly add the closed captioning on that video. Likewise, the transcript can be pulled from that video in a paper copy, like a digital printed copy, and we could again edit that a little bit just to make sure we're getting it, and we could include that on the website alongside these minutes, if that would be something that the committee would like us to do.
If I could, in fairness, the issue has passed, but I think as a point of procedure, we need to have some clarity in these reports by our specialists. So I would like to see that.
So just for clarification, Barb, then it's more just for this last meeting because it was inaudible that we're asking for this. We're not asking for this for meetings going forward in general.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Matt,
perhaps
your hand, yeah, I
sorry.
did.
Just for greater clarity, I think what we're also, it's specific to the one report to make it easier on staff. It was the one report from the building official who was largely inaudible. If he could at least add text to that part of the video, then it's there and it shows up as to fill in that gap.
Certainly,
Okay.
that makes sense. So we can leave that with staff then to do.
Okay. Any further comments? If not, Hillary, would you read the resolution to approve the minutes with the attached comments that have been made?
So we have resolution 2021-023, that the minutes of the following meeting be adopted as written and distributed, and that staff provide the written transcript from the August 17th Special Heritage Committee meeting, that those be posted to the website and provided to committee members.
Thank you. Moved? You were going to move that? Thanks, Mary. Seconded?
Second.
Thanks, Barb. John, either or. All in favor? Aye.
I,
Approved?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now, any business arising from the minutes? Courtney, do you have, or Hillary, do you have anything that you're aware of that's arising from the prior minutes that we've not discussed about, not already discussed?
No,
Okay.
not that I can see.
The next item on the agenda is we have the Community Heritage Ontario Summer 2021 newsletter and the Community Heritage Ontario 2020 annual report. And I've got it, Hillary, that you are going to read a resolution concerning these two items.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, did anyone have any comments about either of those items?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the newsletter, there was an interesting piece in there regarding the David Cash House in Markham. And one of the points they mentioned that made it an interesting building was that it was done using plank-on-plank construction. We have one of those buildings here in the township, but I don't know if we have it on the registry. So at least I'm not sure. I didn't have a chance to pull up the name, but when I was wondering if maybe offline, maybe I could chat with Mary or whoever might be more familiar with these places, just to make sure the one I'm thinking of is actually on there, because the one I'm thinking of I only know it was plank on plank because exactly the same situation happened when someone was renovating it. They exposed the walls and it was something to see. And it now exists as a two-story house with field rubble stone on the outside. They really did a great job, but all the renovations were done some 20 or 30 years ago. But I'd interested to know from the committee that if it's not on our registry list, would it be one we might want to think adding in maybe next year to consider adding a plank on plank house to our list? Because typically we have all the stone houses or a log house, but I don't recall any plank on planks.
I was unaware we had anything like that, Matt. Thank you for that. Any other comments on that, Matt's suggestion? I don't know, John, you have any comments on that?
Not really. I'm not familiar with the one that Matt's talking about, so no.
Yeah, Mary?
yeah, well, first of all, one wouldn't omit a building construction on the basis of its construction style. So, and I do know that plank on plank buildings are relatively rare, certainly in this part of Ontario. And so I'd be very interested in having the building identified at some point. And now that we have and are following the guidelines under the Ontario Heritage Act for identifying significance, certainly plank on plank would fall within the design significance, which is rare and unique, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Good, thank you.
yeah.
Barb, any comments?
Yes, Councillor Bonner, I think this is an excellent suggestion. I think one of our responsibilities as a heritage community is identification of the type of structures that we have in our community. But secondly, I feel education is part of it. So if we have another type of structure that we can showcase and promote as something relatively unique to this area, but something unexpected, I think this is just a bonus. So yes, I think this is a great idea to investigate this closer and get some historical background on this building.
Okay, so maybe next, put it on a work plan for next year, possibly, then it would be a place to pursue this. I guess for staff, that'd be a question for staff.
How do we want to record these excellent remarks in this discussion?
Well, perhaps how we do that is I would make a motion that regarding, researching a plank on plank house in the township be added to the work plan for 2020, for next, whatever, 2022. And then it would be recorded in the minutes as an action to be followed up on, and then it won't get lost.
Okay, thank you. Now, should that motion follow the approval or the acceptance of the newsletter and the annual report?
I've got it on there, Mr. Chair.
Okay, perfect.
And
Thank
yes,
Thank you. So very good, very good. Well done, Matt. Good, very good point. Could we have someone move that we accept the newsletter and report, please?
Oh, I have another one.
Oh, you do? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
That first one was so good. I thought that was it. Carry on, please, Matt.
The Community Heritage Ontario Annual Report. We're a member of Community Heritage Ontario. That's why we're getting these. Is that correct?
yes, that's correct.
At the end of the membership list, they said that if you don't see yourself in the membership list, please let them know. And I didn't see ourselves in the membership list.
Time for a refund on the fee.
Well, at least we're getting the email.
Good one, Matt. I didn't notice that. I really didn't notice it.
Could I comment on that? And Matthew, I noticed that right away too. But then I noticed that it was the 2020 annual report. So we'd have to check with Hillary. Were we actually members in 2020? Or was it only this past year that we were members?
Oh, good point.
Yeah, I believe it's the 2021 that we were members of this. So
Okay.
if we're not included on the next one, definitely let us know.
Okay.
Good catch and better catch.
Well done, guys. Nice to know that people read these things. Okay, we go back to asking for someone to move that we accept the above mentioned newsletter and report.
Mr. Chair, I can read the resolution first.
Fair enough.
So resolution 2021-024, that the Community Heritage Ontario Summer 2021 newsletter and the 2020 annual report be received for information, and that the research of plank on plank heritage homes for identification for the Heritage Registry be conducted by subcommittee members for the 2022 goals and objectives list.
Thank you, Hillary. Now, can we have that moved, please? Thank you, Mary. Seconded?
I'll
Thank you,
second.
John.
Okay.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Carried. Next item of business is any delegations, which I understand there are no delegations. And I do not believe there is any correspondence, although I will ask if anyone has received any correspondence that hasn't been passed on. I don't think so. Therefore, we can.
John?
Yes,
I sorry, I routinely receive or get forwarded requests, often through members of the Puslinch Historical Society regarding, oh, I don't know, heritage properties, etc. I don't actually bring them, and maybe I should, to this committee. Often they're just questions about whether or not the item is on the registry or someone's tracing a family history with the property. Last week, I received a request from, oh, and I should say, some of these are consequences of my articles in the Pioneer. So last week I received a request from someone on the board of the Killeen Cemetery regarding restoration of the gates there and asking for recommendations or at least information on local heritage masons. So I do that. If the committee would like, I can forward these as they occur. Frankly, I have perhaps not been as administratively careful with these as I should in terms of the committee activities, but there.
okay, Matt, any comments on that?
Oh, thank you. I think that's a great idea, Mary, and perhaps including our support staff in these correspondences as well, just so they can see the level of interest and the type of questions that members of the committee receive, and over time enabling them to be able to answer them, because they may get them directly as well. So I think it's really important that this is something that we empower staff and enable staff to be able to do, not just ourselves, but that staff are included in this, because typically a committee communicates to the community either through its chair or through its staff, through the support staff. So keeping them in the loop would be great.
Oh, right, I will do that. And I should say, on occasion, they do come from township staff.
Mhm.
But I will, I'll be more upright with those in the future.
John, any comments? Barb?
Yes, I would like to add a comment, and Mary, I encourage you and I both to do this a little bit more. And Mary's quite straightforward in saying that the segue sometimes starts out with the Historical Society. But I think as a heritage committee, a committee of council, the more that we interact with our community, the more interest people express in the work that they see us doing or the work that we see we represent, the better our communication is going to be within our community. So I think as insignificant as some of these requests may seem at the time, I think we would do ourselves a service to our committee to chat about these and to be open that we've received this type of communication.
All right.
Thanks,
If I can
Barb.
just respond, Chair, I think that what I'm quite able to do is to forward to you in the township or the whole committee an email archive of these requests, or I can just make a list and the action that took place, so that we will have it at least for for the last year.
Okay,
How's
so
that
thanks,
sound?
Mary.
Okay.
I think Barb makes a very good point there, that it's sort of part of our marketing campaign, as it were, to let people know we're here and alive and doing things.
At the same time, Mr. Chair, we have to keep in mind that we are a committee of council or of the township, and we have to make sure we check all the boxes and check with staff as well. We don't want, I might be uncomfortable myself answering a question on behalf of the committee when the committee may not agree with what I'm saying. I mean, we're lucky we have somebody like Barb and Mary who are smart enough and know the answers. But at the same time, I want to make sure that we get in the habit of doing this in a manner that will work for no matter who's on our committee. And maybe this
Okay.
is something we can work towards understanding how to do this. Like much like members of council, I when people contact me directly, I'm only speaking for myself when I reply. I'm not speaking on behalf of the township as a member as a member of council. So
Yep.
you just got to know the difference between what you're being asked, what the question is about, and that kind
Yeah,
of-
we don't want this thing to get bound up in too much protocol and too much more work, but I take your point, and it's a good
Yes.
point. And between Barb and Mary, they do have, and
Yeah.
yourself, you've got deep knowledge of what's happening in the township, and an awful lot of these questions, you guys already know the answers to, and it's not something that you can answer on a personal level rather than answering for the committee. I think for a lot of the kind of inquiries that come in because of your deep knowledge on this stuff.
and it's great because a lot of these answers can't wait until the next meeting. So we need to have some way for people to get those answers and to see the committee as being valuable. But I just want to make sure
I think Mary's suggestion that she's going to forward this stuff to council, to the other members of the committee, that kind of gets the wheels in motion, and then everybody can see what's going on. And I really think that with the skill set sitting on this committee, people are going to know when a question needs to be taken further than just, oh, that was Mr. So-and-so's great niece who lived over there, that kind of thing. I'm being very trite about that, I know, but you know what I mean.
To that end, what I think, I just want to make sure that I agree 100% with what we're trying to achieve. I want to make sure we do it in a way that respects, understanding there's a lot of rules around municipalities and communications with the public and sharing that information. So I'm never trying to put a poo-poo on what we're doing. I just want to make sure, I don't think this should be shared broadly with the committee when it's received, number one. And if it goes to staff, then they can put it in a context that then can appear on our next agenda, respecting all the freedom of information and privacy. When a municipal member, when we receive correspondence, we have to be careful with the information we receive regarding emails, names, all that stuff. So
Right.
That's why I'm suggesting this is a great idea. We just have to make sure that it's done in a way that respects and reflects the restrictions that that are applied to municipal council, municipal committees, and municipal staff. Because I think this is a great direction, but we need to make sure it's done in a way we don't step in I won't say it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, you're a farmer, we understand. Thank you, Matt. No, very good points. Hillary, do we need, I don't think we need a resolution to cover that, or would you like one to cover that point?
John?
Yes, I'm sorry, Mary.
Just further to what Matt has said about this, I think what we need is direction from the township staff on how to report these, how to respond and report these requests for information.
Record them, yes.
Okay.
If there are concerns about privacy, et cetera,
Mary, would you be able to give just a general example of what one of these would look like, just so that staff is better aware?
Sure. Well, as I said last week, I had a request from a member of the board of the Killeen Cemetery asking for instruction on repairing their gates, and not for instruction, but asking for information on any local heritage masons. And so I sent her some. I didn't endorse them. I just said, here are some you can consult. Another request was from someone, there are a number of genealogical related requests. Someone from out of the country whose relatives are buried in the Howitt Cemetery. And I wanted some information about the stones. So I went out and re-photographed them, sent them that information. Is there things along this line yeah, there's a couple of examples.
Okay, I think that those would be great if they were shared with staff, and then staff can help to direct the inquiries appropriately with the information that we have on hand. And then if there's something that requires research by staff or staff time to look into that, we do have processes where we can use to do that kind of research with the archives or with whoever needs to be involved as well. So I think those are great examples of where they could be forwarded to staff, and we can work through our processes and see how to help them.
Good.
Thanks, Mary. Any further comments? So we'll
Yeah,
step. Yes, sorry, John.
I just want to add, Mary, I presume that you're, when you get these and you reply, you're generally doing it via email or a message, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Instead of turning it into a protocol nightmare, why wouldn't you just put a disclaimer statement at the bottom of your email that says that you're happy to, the answer to the question is your personal opinion. It in no way reflects the opinion of the Postman's Heritage Committee or the Township Postman, period. And that's it. And nobody else has to get involved.
Are you asking me that question?
I'm asking you, Matt, and Courtney that question.
My answer would be that I think it's part of the, unless I'm incorrect, part of the responsibilities of this committee to educate. And I see that as the end product of these requests for information. In other words, I think it's within the purview of this committee to do this work, and not me as an independent consultant.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, fair enough. It just seems the protocol seems to be turning into a key item, and we're getting a lot of protocol with regard to just about everything these days. So eventually protocol is going to get very tangly, and it's going to be hard to follow for everybody. And since someone in this case is sending you a direct question and you're answering it based on your knowledge, I think you have the support of everybody in this committee that has enough confidence in you to be able to answer that type of question. To turn it into an administrative trail, I don't know, does it always make sense? I don't know, maybe it does. It seems like an abundance of possibly unnecessary involvement at times. Just a thought.
Yeah, I have to say that they're not fast and furious requests, and that I think that we can arrive at a method that perhaps isn't administratively heavy, but I really think it's important that these be recorded and acknowledged as from the committee. And I think the committee would appreciate knowing what I'm spouting on behalf of the committee. And I realize it is important that the committee endorse whatever advice or information I'm sharing as a member of the committee. And that's why John, that's why they're sent to me, is because I'm on the Heritage Committee.
You could just add a line in your disclaimer saying that, the inquiry and your response will become circulated to the Postman's Heritage Committee for additional comments.
Mm.
Mr. Chair,
Courtney,
sorry, could I
you
make
have Yep. Go ahead.
just a suggestion to float out there to the committee? So when these requests are received for information, would it be, and Mary, I heard your statement about them maybe not being fast and furious in terms of needing a response, but could it be an opportunity where, an ongoing subcommittee is established, maybe with yourself and one other member, Mary, where these inquiries are reviewed, responded to? Staff could certainly keep a record of them. if we, as part of the Heritage Committee's work. And then there may be an opportunity to report to the committee on a quarterly basis, just the general nature of what's been discussed, the inquiries that have been asked, and kind of the responses that went out. That way staff had a little bit involved, but like you said, we're not overly burdened with the procedure, but there's a record, there's a subcommittee that's established to respond, and then the committee as a whole gets to an update quarterly on these types of things.
Yes, Mary.
Courtney, would you see this as falling within an existing public engagement subcommittee?
I think that could be I think like the way you had said before about education, it kind of falls into that. So educating on heritage, I know we have a committee, I believe, established a subcommittee for that
Well,
already.
I think it's called public engagement.
Okay,
Yeah, and no, I know it's called public engagement. The committee members are myself and John Arnold, who is the chair. So that could be a committee to work on this, if others agree.
I'm good with that. I agree with John that we don't want to burden staff with any more than they already
Mhm.
do. And this may be a slightly eloquent way of doing it. That if something major comes up, Mary, I mean, I know that you'll wave the flag that, hey, we've got something really interesting here that everyone should be aware of. But the minor points, yeah, I'm very content with leaving it where it is, and you and I handle it as need be. And you certainly don't have to contact me very often about it, because you know far more about it than I do. I'm learning all the time.
One additional question then, if I could, Mr. Chair, of staff. Just want to confirm that the Freedom of Information Act, it also applies to committee members as well. If someone makes a Freedom of Information request at the township of staff, you would also have to you'd have to make sure that you got all the information from any committee members that corresponded on that subject too, would you not? Or does it not apply to committee members?
I believe you're right, Matthew, and I think that's the important piece with involving staff. So if we could have the inquiry recorded, and then Hillary could work through the request with the subcommittee, and just making sure that the information going out isn't releasing any personal information. It gives that opportunity for just that second set of eyes before it goes out, given that it's going to be provided on behalf of an advisory committee. It's important that we have that second look at it.
I'm sorry to bring that up all the time, Mr. Chair. It's just that the public always demands more transparency and accountability, and staff will be held accountable if someone makes a request and they fail to disclose something that someone is aware of. So we're just always trying to make sure that in the attempts to be as compliant with these things and provide the accountability and transparency that people are always wanting, that when we start these things, we build in the ability to be accountable and transparent. That's all it's about. It's not about trying to build an extensive bureaucracy. Just how can we do this simply and meet all the tests that are before us?
You know, your point's well taken, Matt. You know, you're right. It's the way of the world. That's the way it'll have to go. So, get back to Hillary. Do we need a resolution to cover this item?
Mr. Chair, I think that would be appropriate, given that we definitely have an actionable item here. So I've got resolution number 2021-025, that the Public Engagement Subcommittee respond to correspondence items received from the public and work with the committee secretary to track correspondence items, and that correspondence reports be placed on future agendas for the whole committee for future meetings.
Any further comments? If not, I'll call for a motion to accept the resolution.
I'll move. I like that. It's great what Mary has caused to happen.
Hillary, I am in awe of how you can translate that discussion into a couple of very well-written lines. Very, very impressive.
Yeah.
Could we have a seconder for the motion, please?
A second.
Thanks, Mary. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, item 10.2 is update on the draft heritage registry. Courtney, you're going to make some comments on this, and you have some other comments that I would like you to share with the committee that you and I have talked about earlier. So if you would go ahead, please.
If it's all right, could I just provide a policy
Yes.
background on this, just before we open it up to questions to Courtney and everything? Mr. Chair, just provide some policy background and
Yes.
context.
Yes,
Okay,
go
thank
ahead,
you,
Matt.
Mr. Chair.
Sorry.
As the committee is aware, or maybe I think they're aware, there is some broader policy work that's going on both here at the township and at the county that staff are working within. Locally here, the committee identified the need for a land acknowledgement statement. And actually, Mary even provided a copy of the acknowledgement statement that the University of Guelph used, not just to members of the committee, but also to staff. And as part of the discussions we had here around the table, you'll recall that we all agreed that if we're going to go down this path, or if the township is going to have a land acknowledgement statement, the intent isn't that it just exists as words on the top of a page that are read out before each meeting, but that it should have sufficient meaning that the act of its creation and its use lead to, some kind of tangible action. And during that same period, the county has been working towards a similar objective and has been consulting with First Nations and its member municipalities to ensure that any work that's being done in this regard is coordinated and is aligned. And for us, that means that staff have been working with a cultural heritage specialist, someone who's highly experienced in developing and maintaining First Nations engagement programs, which is a huge asset to our staff. As part of that process, the sample acknowledgement that Mary shared with everyone has also been shared with that specialist to ensure that the information that this committee is talking about is considered as they work through these things. It's also important to understand that through all of this, staff is constantly working with the understanding of their obligations under the Planning Act to consult with First Nations on all development applications. Now, I recognize that the Heritage Registry is not in itself strictly a development application, but it is an acknowledgement of development that took place on the land by one culture at a time when there was more than one culture living on the land. So I think my understanding is that additional time is being taken to ensure that when the Heritage Registry does ultimately come forward, that the registry that comes forward reflects the knowledge that has been gained, I guess, through the process of developing what the committee is looking for to be a meaningful land acknowledgement statement. And I think that is time well spent to put both this committee, staff, and the township in good standing when that is ultimately passed. So with those kind of broader context, I just want to make sure we're all aware of what's going on at other levels beyond just at our committee. So thanks.
Thank you, Matt. Courtney, would you like to pick it up from here? Or sorry, Mary, would you like to make a comment before Courtney picks it up?
Well, I'd like to hear from Courtney and then I'll ask a question.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, John. So I just have a few more discussion points just to add surrounding the timeline. So staff have been working for a period of time trying to get this this territorial acknowledgement statement prepared to come forward at the same time as the final draft of the registry. And so at this point, we're looking mid-October to have that draft. So not too much of a delay here for when that gets prepared in draft form. We're actually looking for it to come forward to council as part of the final draft registry. So the council has the opportunity to look at it with the draft registry. I think that it's the most meaningful way to bring it forward. in that regard. So that's the plan. So likely we will have something for November to bring forward. That's the plan, with it being in draft by mid-October and then lining up with the next council meeting. So just to reinforce a little bit what Matthew has said, there's been some collaboration with the member municipalities and the county trying to develop something. But again, bearing in mind that it's going to be very specific to each member municipality. So there is quite a bit of work involved in that. And the consultant that we have and are working with has many years experience in doing this. And just to highlight a little bit further, just to give some recognition to this committee, acknowledging I do believe for many years now that this is something that's necessary and needs to be brought forward. And it has been a part of your discussion at the committee level for some time. The consultant that has been doing this for about 30 years, he said, has never really seen an acknowledgement statement being a part of a register document, and just how meaningful that is and how sometimes that's overlooked. And really just that with Puss Lynch looking to do that with our register and bringing it forward, he really does think this is kind of a best practice being set. This is Puss Lynch setting an example of the best and most meaningful way to bring this register forward. So I think the committee itself really needs to just recognize that this has been something top of mind for you for many years. And it is just very forward thinking on behalf of the committee. So he wanted to just make note of that as we kind of work through this process. So just a couple points there to highlight, but if there's any questions and comments, certainly we can discuss those.
John, maybe we keep our order of speaker. John, have you got any comments on that?
I have nothing to add to that.
Okay, Mary, I know that you probably have a few comments on this.
Well, I appreciate very much what Courtney has told us about using it as a preface, for lack of a better term in my mind right now, to the registry. I also appreciate that Puss Lynch seems to be leading the forefront of this anyway. I guess my question is, who is the consultant?
So we don't actually have a name to disclose at this time. It's an individual that has 30 years experience working with a number of registries and on numerous land acknowledgement statements. And so he does it across industries. So it's not just specific to municipalities, but I'm sorry, Mary, I don't have a name or any identifying information to provide to the committee.
Well, if this person is employed by the township, I do not understand why, regarding heritage, why this committee is not able to access that information.
Certainly, I can take that back to our CAO. It may just be that information will come forward with the draft when the final document has been prepared for viewing. I don't have an answer right now, Mary, but I can take that back.
And I also think that being that registry was compiled by this committee, and being that this is a preface to it, I would think that there might be some opportunity to share that with the committee prior to it going to council.
Certainly, we can look at that. We can look at the best way to get that to the committee, knowing that, offhand, I don't know when your next committee meeting is, but just in the interest of time to get it to council, we can take that back as staff and see the best way that we can have that circulated to the Heritage Committee.
All right. And I have another comment, which is I sent an email, I think, to Hillary and Courtney, and probably to the whole committee, expressing my concern that this process was actually delaying the approval of the registry. Now I have a better understanding that the delay isn't that extensive. But I should say at this point, as we meet, the City of Guelph Heritage Committee is meeting today, or the City Council of Guelph is meeting to discuss the Carter Caulfield Town farmhouse and its future, which could mean that they will be applying for a demolition permit. And yet we still don't have an official registry to protect that property. So, yeah, I just would like to see things get secure as soon as possible. And it sounds like they will.
Barb, do you have any comments?
I'll just add a little bit to Mary's comment in acknowledging that what we're trying to get legitimized is a registry that would grant us 60 days. And that's it.
That's right.
I think we can do a lot in 60 days. We can check the historical record, we can take more photographs, but ultimately we cannot stop demolition. So I'm sitting on the fence here. I appreciate Mary's need for urgency, but I do like the concept of a finished document that recognizes multiple cultures using property, recognized land sites within Puslinch Township. But I do appreciate what you're saying about the Carter House.
Mhm. May I respond?
Yes, Mary, please.
When an official registry does allow us, perhaps not in this case, but in another case, to go forward and ask council to propose a motion to designate. And that would prevent demolition. So there is value to having it done to prevent demolition. But having said all that, it does seem like things are in progress here, and that before Christmas, we'll have a registry with a territorial acknowledgement. So, hooray.
Johnny, did I see your hand waving there, or you just, no? Okay, thank you. Any further comments?
Mr. Chair, sorry, just one comment, and maybe this is something that staff can assist with, but just with the city of Guelph being our neighbors, we have had quite a bit of good conversation on several other different topics in the township. And perhaps would it be something where if staff were to reach out to the city of Guelph and just let them know that we're thinking about this house, this Carter House, and would there perhaps be the opportunity for a bit of a delay with the demolition if that's what's taking place? Like, even though our register is not in place yet, if our end goal is to collect some information and do that sort of thing, and all we're looking for is a little bit more time, maybe just simply having that discussion with the city of Guelph would allow that to happen as well.
Any comments on that, Mary? Would that?
Yeah, I do have a comment, and if you'll just bear with me very, very quickly, I will, okay. So the agenda for the Guelph City Council, today, the Committee of the Whole, today, the executive summary concerning the Cartertown farmhouse, I keep wanting to say townhouse, says that city staff have been in conversations with the Township of Puslinch concerning this property, and stabilization of it will cost about, well, in excess of $100,000, so on and so forth. So I just want, I'm surprised that I'm getting this information from the chair of Heritage Guelph, and that apparently the Township of Puslinch is not, and that these buildings are at risk, that this building is at risk, and its future may be decided as we speak today. So
Thank you, Mary.
So
I'm
Courtney, I
also,
appreciate what you're saying, but it doesn't sound to me like the city of Guelph has been initiating discussions regarding this meeting that's ongoing,
Mhm.
going in, yeah.
And maybe Mary, just to that point as well, in a more general context, maybe it's worthwhile, seems like it's worthwhile for staff to reach out, just to make sure that the city is contacting staff as well. I think it's
Yeah.
important to contact committee members, but certainly if staff are left out of the loop, it makes it more challenging. So
Well,
I
I
think,
agree.
Mhm.
Sorry, I agree, Courtney, and I meant, well, I should have forwarded this to you. I just got it this morning. But anyway, yeah, and I didn't get it from city staff. So,
Okay, I think that's a takeaway that staff can look at and just contact the city of Guelph to see the best way to work through these types of matters when they come forward. Make sure we're part of the discussion. And we can follow up on the Carter House as well. I think that that's important. I think that a small amount of time to have staff and the committee look at an important piece of heritage, I think to me is reasonable. So we can certainly reach out and get some more information on that.
Okay, thanks, everyone. No further comments? Then Hillary, perhaps you'd read the resolution covering this item, please.
Yeah, for sure. Also, Mr. Chair, if after this item, could we please also go back to item 10.1? That was missed before this item.
10.1, yes.
Okay, perfect. So we've got resolution 2021-027, that the verbal report on the update of the draft heritage registry by Courtney Hoyt-Fox be received for information, and that staff provide the draft registry to the committee before going to council, and that staff reach out to the city of Guelph regarding the Carter Caulfield property.
Any discussion? If not, could I have a motion to approve the resolution, please?
I move.
Mary, thank you. Second,
Second.
thanks, Barb. Sorry, Johnny, you got to get your hand up faster there.
I guess so.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carried unanimously. Okay, thank you. See, where are we now? I'm having trouble reading. I lost some of my light bulbs down here. And yes, and you can say you are a dim bulb. I'm waiting for that. Okay, update on the draft heritage registry. Where are we on this thing? With 10.2?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we missed item 10.1 before, so we need to go back and do that item.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. My apologies. I did miss that completely. Yes. So if we could move back to 10.1, a review of the Heritage Committee goals and objectives for 21-22. And Hillary, would you take it from here, please?
Yeah, I can share my screen just to make it easier for the committee and anybody watching, so I can see what we're talking about. Courtney, can you please enable screen sharing?
Yeah, I have it up on my machine here too, so.
Perfect, here we are here. Might take a second to load. Can everybody see this right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we have the first goal and objective. This one's pretty much done. It's just the quarterly reporting to council and heritage initiatives in progress. So that's still on an ongoing basis. There will be a report going to council for this coming council meeting that's just going to comment on the goals and objectives and what the committee has accomplished this year. So just so everybody in the committee is aware of that one. Moving on to the next one, the Doors of Puslinch poster. I'll let John Arnold, our chair, and John Levac speak to this one a little more.
Sure, thanks. Hill, Johnny, do you want to comment on that? We have had discussions on where we're going to go with this for in the near future. Do you want to pick that up?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we looked at that thing pretty carefully last week. Just to clarify on one thing, there was some concern about copyright on that. The original poster was produced by the Portsmouth Heritage Committee in late 2004, and it was presented to the New Year's Gala in obviously early 2005. And since then, it's been given to the Wellington Archives, where it is actually registered as being owned by the Puslynch Heritage Committee and the Township of Puslynch. I think based on that, I don't think there should be any issue pertaining to copyright and reuse of the original poster. I may be wrong, but that sounds definitive enough. That said, we reviewed exactly what we were trying to do with this thing, and I believe it was either Barb or myself, or Barb and myself, who came up with the idea of bringing this thing back to life, and that was either in the pre-COVID days or very early into it. And we've been kind of talking about it and trying to develop this ever since, including getting some updated pricing on printing and whatnot. But since then, a lot of the reality of distribution has kind of set in. Originally we had ideas about selling the posters to the township office, perhaps taking it to the library, where they actually have one of these on the wall. And I speak to the ladies in there about that quite a bit, and there's a lot of interest that seems to be generated in the library. That would have been a marketing venue. The Canada Day celebration at the community center, where we typically have a table, would have been a marketing venue. And of course, the Puslynch Pioneer, which is obviously still there, would be one. But for the most part, all of those channels of distribution, if you want to call them that, have dried up through COVID protocol. In other words, we don't really have, I'm not confident that we have a way to actually sell these posters in the volume that we would actually need to do. I was talking to Janice at the library about the volume of people that are actually in there these days. And not really to my surprise, she said that average daily count of people that actually enter the door at the library is at the most 30 people. This is considerably lower than it used to be in the pre-COVID days, when family, mothers and dads would bring their kids in for little children's events that they would put on and whatnot. None of that is happening anymore. Puslynch offices remain closed, which is a little bit odd, because it seems to be one of the few municipal offices in Ontario that still is closed, but I presume that's all based on local health requirements. Anyway, the conclusion of everything I'm saying here is we've decided to put the poster reprint on hold for at least a year. Hopefully things will have recovered a little bit. These places will be opened up, and we won't run the risk of putting out a reasonable pile of cash to buy these posters and not have the opportunity to sell them. You want to add anything to that, John, or is that pretty much the summary?
No, I think, John, you've done an excellent job summarizing our discussions and our discussions with staff about our reasoning and why we think it should be deferred for probably at least a year.
Right.
Anyone have any comments on our comments?
Makes perfect sense. I'm glad you guys thought about this. It's sometimes we get an idea, we love it so much we forget to think about it, and I really appreciate the fact that not only have you looked into the challenges of getting it produced, but you've also thought about the challenges of getting it distributed and sold, and having to deal with both ends of the stick is important. So thank you, and I look forward to moving ahead with this when the time is right again.
Yeah, likewise, and I must thank Hillary and other staff members for kind of triggering the discussion that, have we thought about this? Have we thought about that? And it was much appreciated. Thank you.
So if we're done with this item, we can move down. Also, as we're going forward, I do note that some of our subcommittees have 3 members. Just due to the size of our committee being 5 members, we do need to have, unfortunately, only 2 members per subcommittee. So if we do see one with 3, that is a discussion we're going to need to have. So for this subcommittee here is between Matthew, Mary, and Barb. Is there someone who would be able to step off the Heritage Registry subcommittee?
Oh, boy. Silence.
Oh.
Oh, no. Well, I guess I'll take the big step and I can support as needed, but I know Barb and Mary certainly have that's where the wealth of knowledge and the depth of knowledge is, but I don't mind contributing, putting stuff in to be considered.
Okay, perfect.
Matt,
Just explain
Yes.
the rationale again, please.
Well, you and Mary, well, you have the family history here, a depth of knowledge that I don't want to do without on the subcommittee, and Mary has the policy knowledge that I think is so critical to understanding what and why something should be on a registry. And this is the subcommittee for the registry we're talking about, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
I don't mind providing, you have a question, like my idea today to put something for consideration. But I am the weakest link, as they said, and so I gladly step back from this as much as I love it.
And Courtney, this has something to do with just the number of our committee as a whole. We're only allowed to have 2 people on a subcommittee.
Otherwise, it's quorum.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you, Matthew. I
Sorry,
also,
Mary, you have a comment?
well, before Matthew rides off into the sunset, I would like to thank him for all his help with this committee and appreciate his offer, continued sort of information if we need it. Yeah. Without forming a quorum.
Yes.
Right.
okay. And then also too, with this one, I do have from our earlier discussion during the meeting, I know Matthew's brought this up, but the research of plank on plank homes for the inclusion on the future registry as well.
And when that comes up next year, I can provide it to the subcommittee for consideration.
Okay, perfect.
Matthew, we could make you subcommittee member emeritus. You have a voice, but no vote.
And a broom closet
There you go.
and no staff.
And no staff. Anyway, sorry, guys, a little light humor here.
I've worked there before.
Okay. You want to carry on?
Yep, if there's no further comments on this item. Okay, yeah, I can go down to the next one. This one too, also the same with the number for our heritage signage subcommittee.
The heritage signage?
Yes, so
Mhm.
that also has Barb, Mary, and Matthew on that one.
We need another member on the Heritage Committee.
I can, if Matthew would like to remain on this committee, I can retire from it.
Okay, perfect. So I will amend that. So it's Matthew Palmer and Barb Jefferson on the subcommittee.
Thank you, Mary. I didn't look ahead to see. It's odd. Is it always going to be the 3 of us that had signed up for the same thing? Is it? I don't know.
Don't know. I don't know.
Now I know for this item from past conversations with the committee that this project was put on hold just because there was a lot of other projects that was going on consecutively. So I think with, does anybody have any comments on this, or is this something that the committee wants to table until 2022? I can meet with the subcommittee and we can have further discussions on sort of what signage can look like or anything like that.
Yes, Barb?
Mr. Chair, to Courtney and to Hillary, for that exact reason, could we leave this committee standing at 3 members as it is, since this is not really an active subcommittee right now? I appreciate Mary's input on this and her many ideas about signage, and I would hate to lose access to that for this subcommittee. But it is true that we're quite busy as a committee at whole, and it does look like we won't be visiting this topic until the new year. Does that sound reasonable, or do we have to resolve this today?
Well, I don't mind stepping aside from this one too, if you think there's honest to goodness, because I'm not the best one at judging what a sign looks like. I'll be honest, I'll put it right out there. You know, we don't. But I have ideas, especially with this in terms of the natural heritage and other opportunities for signage that I would gladly feed into the committee. I just, you know, I'll step back because again, you guys, Mary has this is an A team again of local knowledge and policy knowledge that I can add to, but I don't mind stepping aside and being a support, you know, with ideas. If that makes it easier for you, Barb, to work to make sure that you have Mary's support, because I understand the staff's legitimate concern regarding quorum.
And Barb, would it be useful too if the subcommittee reported back to the whole committee on this maybe regularly to get that feedback from the other members?
Absolutely. This is a big topic, and I think every member on this committee brings something to the table for this. This is potentially innovative and sort of a new look for the township, similar to the signage that's already been incorporated. So I'm unhappy losing any members of this subcommittee.
That's, Barb, if I may interject there, that's a good suggestion, though. If it comes back to the committee as a whole for discussion, that probably takes care of the quorum issue. Because I think you're right. I think we all like to have some input on that.
Well, then an alternative
Can
is
I make a point, John, if I can?
Gotta raise your hand, Johnny. I can just, you're just a little postage stamp on the side of my screen.
Yeah, I know it normally is, but I think now that this, I don't see it on my screen anymore. It seems to have vanished with Hillary's little thing she's put up here. But anyway, it'll come back eventually. All I was going to, here's the point I want to make about subcommittees. My understanding when these were set up was that basically we had point people on the subcommittees, but each particular category certainly wasn't off limits to everybody else on the committee. So if Courtney needs a maximum of 2 people assigned to every subcommittee, then so be it. Let's have 2 people on every subcommittee with the understanding that anybody on the Heritage Committee can step in and be consulted, offer an opinion, help in any way. Again, it sounds to me like we've got a process thing here that's taking over the reality of what's going on. I'm not on the Heritage Signage Subcommittee, but if I have something, to offer, I certainly always plan to do so, and I would continue to do so. So does it really matter that we only have 2 people as point people on subcommittees?
If I could speak to that, Mr. Chair, I think Mr.
Yes.
Levack is
Go ahead,
correct. And in terms of the number only matters in terms of that if there's a Zoom meeting called, those are the only 2 that attend with the staff person to discuss or decide on direction. But you're absolutely right. It does not prevent either of those 2 members from reaching out to another member of the committee on an individual basis that's to ask for input or another member providing an idea to those 2 members. It's just a matter of when they meet officially with the staff support, that it's not a quorum of the committee, it's just a subcommittee. And that's the key part that I think we're trying to work towards. So thank you. I think, would that work for staff as well, with that understanding?
Yes, Matthew, I believe it will. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks,
Does that make
John.
sense, John?
Yep.
Yep.
Makes sense, I think, to everybody. As always, Matt, you come up with eloquent solutions, or even elegant solutions. Any further comments on this item? Okay, if we could move ahead.
So just where do we resolve that one? Who's leaving and who's staying on that one? I didn't get a sense of who's-
You were going to stand aside.
Okay,
Okay, perfect. I have that noted. So moving on, I know we've discussed the old school surveys. I know that's been done and it's at the county archives. So we can go on from there. Same with the review of the Heritage Committee terms and reference. We still have John and Barb to remain in their respective positions as chair and vice chair.
Mhm.
Then okay to move on to the public engagement subcommittee, which has got Mary and John Arnold, so we're good for that one. I know we discussed earlier in the meeting the resolution about having this subcommittee take care of any correspondence from the public. So that will also be included in the list of tasks as well. And I think it also might be good for this subcommittee to meet. And yeah, there's a lot of opportunities for engagement. And yeah, John and Mary, if you have any further comments on this.
Mary, do you have any comments?
I have some ideas, but I don't know if this is the place to present them in terms of public engagement, or should John and I bring these forward at another meeting?
Yeah, I think that it may be that you and I and staff should chat about these things and then bring it forward at the next meeting.
Yeah, and I can set something up for the three of us to meet. So I can touch base with you two after this meeting, and we can set up a meeting so we can discuss all these things if that works.
Yes, that would be good.
Great. Mhm.
Okay, any further comments? Okay, next item.
Yeah, so the next item is committee training. So I guess this would fall under committee training, and then any organizations that the committee can be part of. So I'm still going to be looking into that and seeing if there's any further opportunities for the committee. So that's always a work in progress. So next we also have, so this committee is good too. So we've got Mary and John on this one. So this is our subcommittee for Heritage Advisory Committee Orientation Package. So I can work with this subcommittee as well. I believe we have some materials just because next year we do have a new term going. So we'll want to make sure that we can present this package to members of council and the committee as well. So John and Mary, if it's also all right with you two, I'd like to set up a meeting as well, just so we can go over any materials.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. And then next we have the plaques. Does anybody have any comments on this?
No.
Matt, you got any comments on this?
oh, no, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Johnny?
Again, it's it's a part of what we've been doing that's been kind of put on hold as a result of the reality of the shutdown. So I don't know, maybe Barb might have something more intelligent to say than that.
Barb, this is kind of your baby. Would you like to comment on it? No, I really appreciate it. Actually, I'm dead keen to get some of this plaquing done. We've been talking about it for a long time now. So nice to get something up.
Okay, so as far as identifying the properties that have been listed, Mary and I did create an additional list to our heritage registry indicating the homes that have been plaqued. And there is a second database that goes with that, where there are a couple of homes which have been identified as potential for plaquing. And as part of that, some of the background work has been written in that a profile has been created about these houses. For the past 3 or 4 years, as followed from our summer tours, we have identified some houses, some properties that we would like to include in our registry. And that means more work just in writing these properties up and identifying their heritage properties. That is something I think would be a good idea if we brought that to the committee as a whole, as a future agenda item, so that we can get back on track and remember these properties and work together to come up with the historical background to then go forward and send a letter to the owners asking if they would consider being plaqued. And then, of course, add them to our heritage registry. So I think as an item to the committee as a whole, I would say that part of this has been done. We have identified the properties that have been plaqued. We have one plaque ready to be presented, and we are in the process of generating more. So I think we're in good shape. We just need to get back to our grassroots and figure out which properties we want to look at.
Okay, thanks, Barb. Any further comments? Okay. Next item.
Okay, so that would be the heritage property visits, which the status of this unfortunately hasn't changed due to COVID-19. So if that's okay with the committee, I'm just going to move on to the next item.
Yes, please.
Okay, and once again, so this committee here, the documented and acknowledged First Nations sites and heritage. If I could ask someone to step down from this committee as well. So on this one, we have Mary, Matthew, and John Arnold.
Okay, I would like to step down because I really would like to have Matt's input on this.
Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Sorry, Mary.
Yeah, you have to, or you're gonna have to put up
I'm
with Matt.
excited to be back on a subcommittee with you, Matt.
Thank you. This is one I think you and I can do some good work on, Mary.
Good. Yeah, I do too.
So for this one here, Mary and Matt, do you have any comments on this one?
Not until we talk with each other, or at least I'd like to talk with Mary first.
Okay, perfect. And then Matthew, I can also set up a Zoom meeting for staff and you and Mary as well. And that way we can also get some ideas rolling on this one as well.
Perfect. This is the First Nations sites.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, perfect.
And then Mr. Chair, if it's okay if I move on to the last item?
Yep, no, keep going.
Okay. And the last item, I believe Courtney did speak well to this one, is the land acknowledgement statement. So this is the one that is with the county, and we can report back to the committee once we've got a statement from them. And this is something that staff in the county are working on as of right now, or currently.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we have discussed that. It seems almost as if the last item and the earlier item almost flow together, don't they? Acknowledgement of the sites and the heritage and the statement are really part and parcel of a very, very closely allied pair of items. But anyways, that's fine the way it is. Are there any further comments? Any committee members have any further comments? If not, Hillary, would you read the resolution to accept the review, please?
Yeah, so resolution 2021-026, that the Heritage Committee goals and objectives be received for information, and that the committee secretary to set up meetings for subcommittees. And I believe that was it. Did anybody else have anything that they thought should have gone on the resolution?
Sorry, say again, Hillary?
Yeah, so that the Heritage Committee goals and objectives for 2021-2022 be received for information, and that the committee secretary to set up meetings for these subcommittees.
Thank you. It's cutting out a bit on my end here. Sorry, I missed part of that, but thank you for repeating that. Any further comments? If
One
not,
question, just one
Yes.
question, Mr. Chair.
yes, Mr. Bowmer.
There were some amendments made to the subcommittee. Should that be reflected in the motion that it be adopted as presented, plus the amendments that were made, or
As amended.
as amended?
Thank you, Matthew, and that the subcommittees be adopted as amended. There we go.
Thank you. Motion to accept.
I so move.
Thanks, Barb. Barb, so moved. Seconded. Mary, seconded. Thank you, Mary. All in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Carried unanimously. And therefore approved. Okay, that's 10-1, 10-2, we've done 10-3. Hillary, do you want to take this forward, the standard operating procedure budget process? Or Courtney, you're going to do that. Sorry. Courtney, if you would do that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this request came in, I believe, as a comment from Barb, which was really great. Staff saw that this some clarification was requested just on how items with a budgetary impact were to be processed from the committee through to staff. So staff took a few liberties when preparing this document just to list some other items to consider when developing a proposal. Not necessarily for an item with a budgetary impact, but also for one without one, just to give the committee some things to think about when they are preparing a proposal for a goal and objective. So this is a living document that we can certainly update and change and revise as we need to. Our clerk's department uses these SOPs for just about everything we do. So it really makes sense that we adopt these for the committees as well. So just a thank you to the committee for bringing this idea forward. And again, we can use this document and revise it as we need to, but certainly I can answer any questions or anything that the committee has.
Any questions on this? Any comments on this? Barb?
Yeah, through the chair to the staff, thank you very much. This is a very detailed document. I really appreciate this. And one thing I particularly like about it is, as you've indicated, Courtney, going forward, we can use this for the projects that we have listed. I'm thinking of the signage in particular, where we're going to be looking for funding. This definitely gives us directives. So I'm very pleased to see this document, and it does answer my questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Barb.
No further comments? Okay, if we have no further comments, then Hillary, would you read the resolution covering item 10.3, please?
Yep. So resolution number 2021-028, that the review of the standard operating procedure for the budget process by Courtney Hoyt be received for information.
Discussion? If none, could I have a motion to approve the resolution? Mary, thank you. Seconded?
Second.
John Levac, thank you. All in favor?
aye,
Aye.
Carried and approved. Okay. And the next item, 10.4, is the Community Heritage Ontario Conference in Brockville in 2022. Hillary and John, if you would tell us more about this and what we want to do here.
Yeah, sure. These things, there's one typically every year, and just looking at where this has been now. So it's Brockville in 2022 in June. This year there wasn't one due to COVID. The year before, I also believe there wasn't one. Mary, maybe you could correct me on that. I don't think there was one. I think the last one that there was in St. Mary's, Ontario, Or
No,
Ottawa.
there was one in Johnny, there was one in Goderich.
I think there was one in Sault Ste.
Oh,
Marie, or,
was there one in
There was
Goderich?
one in Sault Ste. Marie before that.
yeah, that we chose not to attend.
But we didn't, none of us attended that.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, there's nothing really known about the Brockville one yet. If you hit that link, you get a single page that says, yes, there's going to be a conference. But I checked it again this morning and there's absolutely no information there about who's speaking or what it's going to be all about. It's obviously a little early. I guess the only thing that I would say to this one, being in Brockville, unlike the Sault Ste. Marie one, it's a little more easily accessible for us. So if you'd like, I'll keep my eye on this thing. And as soon as there's an agenda, I'll circulate it to everybody. And then, make a decision as to who might be interested in attending this thing. But it looks like they probably will have a conference. In the past, these things have been worthwhile. The location is doable. So maybe we should have budget for this, even though there's no real information available yet, is all I have to say about this one at this time.
Thanks, John. Hillary, you have any comments?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So to John's point, we do have a budget for committee members to attend conferences. I believe it is $1,000, so that is in our budget. So if the committee member does want to attend a conference, we do have a budget for that.
Hillary, in that Brockville is somewhat accessible, there may be more than just one person attend. Is $1,000 realistic in today's world to cover the expenses, even if people drive and, sort of keep things to a dull roar?
I believe so. So if one or two people would like to go, I think the $1,000 should cover it, depending on the cost of the conference, of course, and things like that, given that we don't know too much about it as of yet. But I do think it's something that could be feasible. We can definitely keep our eye on it for sure and revisit this before then.
Because we attended the conference in Ottawa, Mary, John, and myself, and it was excellent, by the way. And I think we had a budget a little more than $1,000 for that, did we not? I seem to recall.
Yeah, $1,000 sounds a little bit light. I mean, if we had 3 people going, you're going to have probably 2 hotel nights per person. So you got 6 hotel nights. Whether we're driving in a consolidated way or taking the train, I don't know. $500 per person sounds a little more like a realistic budget item. If we expect 3, we could have 4. We could have 5. Matt might want to come on this one too. So if that was the case, $1,000 wouldn't cover it. I presume the thing about budgets in something like this would be that if you don't spend it all, it doesn't really matter. You just didn't spend your budget. So I would probably say something north of 1,500 would make a little more sense for this. It could turn out that we spend 0 because they might not even have it, depending on the COVID situation.
Yes, Barb?
Is it, sorry, Mr. Chair, through to Hillary, is this $1,000 per person or $1,000 per conference?
It is $1,000 for the year for the committee. I believe there's also about $100 also allocated towards meals as well. So I think it's about $1,000 and a bit.
Thank you.
I don't know about any other committee member, but I'd personally like to see that raised. I mean, I've just come off a week on the road, and $1,000 doesn't go very far.
Yeah, but you're staying in 5-star hotels in LA.
True.
Right?
Yeah, there's a lot of 5-star hotels in Louisiana, Johnny. I had to look hard and far to find one.
Was that Louisiana? I thought you were in LA.
No, LA is Louisiana. Yeah, no, that was Bossier City, Louisiana, home of the B-52 bombers.
Okay.
Wow.
That's always encouraging to figure that if there is another big bang, you're going to be in the middle of it. So, anyways, so Hillary, perhaps you could put out, speak to Jeff or whoever you have to speak to, that in light of today's world and the lack of inflation that the government tells us that we have, which we all know is political talk, it might be appropriate if we got a budget a little bit better than $1,500 for a couple of days conference, assuming that it comes. And John's quite right. If we don't use it, we lose it. So it's not as though it's going into a black hole, I don't think. So anyways, you might want to see if there's a little bit of flexibility in the budget there.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I believe, Courtney, are you able to speak more to why the budget is the way that it is?
So it's just based on previous year's allocation and it, so typically if there's if the expense has been exceeded, then oftentimes staff will look at increasing that going forward. So we can look at that, and if there's a specific conference that the committee is wanting to attend and it's for next year, then we can make note of that through the budget process and present it to council in that way, that it's going to cost X amount. This is how many members would like to go, and this is the request for that particular year based on the needs. So we can look at that for sure as we move forward through budget.
Thanks, Courtney. Yeah, I think that's fine.
And if I could, Mr. Chair, just to
Thanks, Matt. Yes.
to John Levac's point about the money's not lost, it was due to the lack of spending of this budget item the last couple of years that produced the funds to fund the plaques. So the council at the time decided that the money not spent on conferences was reallocated towards the plaques when we did the budget last year. That was Councillor Sapoulis who thought that up, and I thought that was a good way of making sure that the committee's goals were met using the carry forward from the budget that wasn't spent. So
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for that explanation. John?
If we ever get the poster thing going, I guess we'll eventually be a self-liquidating committee. Totally fully funded by our own action. Highly effective.
That's very good. Are there any further comments on this? If not, could Hillary read the resolution covering item 10.4?
Yeah, so resolution 2021-029, that the verbal report regarding the Community Heritage Ontario Conference in Brockville 2022 be received for information and staff to look into the budget for their 4 committee members to attend this conference.
Any further discussion? If not, could I have a motion to approve the resolution as presented?
I so move.
Thank you. Seconded, Mary? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Okay, on to item 10.5, addressing the abandoned heritage properties. Mary, you have the microphone.
Thank you. My question is for, thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is for township staff. And that is the question. How, when I have actually, again, received personal or emails about abandoned properties, heritage properties in the township. And when I say heritage, I mean heritage as interpreted by the person asking the question. How are these, where do these fall within the township's jurisdiction? In other words, are there property standards people who look at abandoned buildings and bring in some form of control around them? Exactly how do these either get protected or dealt with? That's a question for Courtney or Hillary or Jeff.
Thank you, Mary. So we have our property standards bylaw, who if we receive a complaint about a property standards issue, he can certainly draft an order for the property, but it doesn't necessarily protect it in terms of restoring any heritage features on the property. It simply makes it safe. So whatever that is, whatever requirements fall under that order to make it safe. I know that our CBO would also be involved in something like that, and potentially our fire department as well, if there was a risk for fires. So typically when we have a complaint that involves a safety issue on a house that's been abandoned or neglected, it's circulated to those folks in the township. But again, that's looking at it from the perspective of health and safety and not necessarily from the perspective of restoring heritage, heritage features.
So Courtney, if I could ask a question on that, you're reactive rather than proactive in this issue. You react to a complaint. There's no procedure for identifying abandoned properties prior to a complaint being made.
It's a little bit different when it involves health and safety. If staff become aware of something that is a health and safety concern, we don't necessarily need a complaint, unlike other types of bylaw issues in the township. We can act without a formal complaint, but we also have to be mindful of the resources where we don't have staff that are on the lookout in the township for this necessarily. So typically it's when we become aware, then we can act. So you're right, John, in a sense it is reactive and not proactive.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised, but I just want to clarify that in my own mind. Mary, you were raising your hand back.
Well, to my knowledge, in the past, the township was alerted that the Calthus farmhouse was not being protected from the elements, at least, which was a clause built into the approval for the subdivision. And I know that in our last meeting concerning this, there was some discussion about how to avoid this happening in the future. So that's why this item is on the agenda. And I don't know if you read the local media, but it's not just developers who are engaged in these activities of abandoning buildings. The GRCA stopped renting an 1840s stone farmhouse in Guelph 4 years ago and applied for a motion to demolish on the basis that it had now become a fire hazard because they had not cared for it. And these things, I'm just saying these things are prevalent in the heritage field. And other than, as you said, being reactive and perhaps providing homeowners with information, it doesn't seem to be there's a bylaw against owning an abandoned building, for instance, or is there, Matt? You nodded your head.
No, you're correct. There isn't. As we just updated the property standards bylaw. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
No, that's good. No, please go ahead.
A couple of interesting points here. You're right. It's reactive, not just because of staffing concerns, but also because the courts that typically prefer to see that there's been a complaint before they'll support a municipality taking action against a landowner with regards to bylaw complaints. So that would speak to that point. And Mary's absolutely right there. Property standards bylaws typically do not speak to maintenance of a building outside of a building that's being rented out, which would be, to your example regarding the GRCA, several years ago, the province got out of the game of regulating rental properties and put that burden on municipalities to provide the enforcement of rental standards. And those rental standards then made it into property standards bylaws. And so when a building is being rented, the building maintenance standards apply. But if it's not being rented, if there's no tenant, then they typically don't apply beyond maintenance of a lawn and then the other issues that were mentioned, a fire hazard or a hazard to somebody else. But I don't think there's any requirement for a building to be maintained so it doesn't fall in on itself. unless it poses a threat to neighboring property or a road or sign. So maybe it's be a good idea for have the property standards bylaw included on our next agenda, so the committee members have a chance to see what's there and what's not, and if and when that bylaw comes up for review again, because typically within a couple of years of these things being put in place, there's an opportunity for some tweaking as staff work with it. This would give the committee an opportunity to look at what's there, what's not there, and then staff could speak to what could be there, couldn't be there, that the committee might want to see in a future amendment. So that way we can deal with this from a perspective of what we can do, and from knowing where we stand today. Does that make sense, Mary?
Oh, yes, actually, it's a great idea, because it's a bit of a fog for me,
Right.
trying to understand, who has what responsibility for these buildings. And as we know, abandoned buildings are often fire hazards simply because people can get in them and set fires.
Thank you, Matt and Mary. Very good points on this. I do agree that we should bring this forward for the next meeting. And this is, as we all know, a fairly standard procedure when someone has what might be a heritage property on a piece of land that they're looking at redeveloping. They quite often just abandon until it falls down, which is a bit of a shame, however. Are there any other comments on this this item? And thank you for bringing it forward, Mary, by the way. If there are no further comments on this, could you read the resolution covering item 10.5, please, Hillary?
Yeah, so resolution item 2021-030, that the verbal report regarding abandoned heritage properties by Mary Tivey be received for information, and that the property standards bylaw be provided on the next agenda for the review of the committee.
Thank you. Any further comments? If not, could I have a motion to accept the resolution? Thank you. No, thank you, Mary. Could I have a seconder, please? Barb, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Approved. Item 10.6 is the subject of meeting dates for 2022. Hillary, would you like to address that, please?
Yep, so in your agenda package, there was a list of dates for 2022. Just wanted to see if there was any comments for any of these dates, or if the committee was good with these dates for next year.
Any comments? Everyone happy with the dates as presented so far? If so, then could we have a resolution covering item 10.6, please, Hillary?
Resolution number 2021-031, that the Heritage Committee meeting dates for 2022 be adopted as written and distributed.
Moved. Thank you, Mary. Seconded. John, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Approved unanimously and carried. Item 11 is adjournment of this meeting or termination of this meeting, whichever you prefer. If you could, sorry guys, sorry, I gotta kill that. And we got, okay, got to turn the darn thing off.
Yeah.
Hillary, if you could give us the resolution covering item 11, the adjournment of the meeting.
Yeah. Resolution item 2021-02, that the Heritage Committee hereby adjourns at 2:48 p.m.
Moved. Wait a minute, I've lost my pictures here. Oh, there we go. Okay, we're back. Moved. Thank you, Mary. Seconded. Barb, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carried. This meeting is hereby adjourned.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Good work,
Good to see
Barb.
everyone.
Bye. Yes, thanks, everyone.